Welcome to the Charity Matters podcast. Mr. Rogers' mother said, always look for the helpers. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing the helpers for a decade with my blog, and I am so excited to finally be sharing these inspiring conversations with our new podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Welcome. There seems no time like the present to dive right in, so please let me introduce myself. My name is Heidi Johnson, and I'm the founder of Charity Matters. 10 years ago, after starting a nonprofit with a group of friends, I decided that the world was focusing on the wrong people, and I began a search to find my tribe, an incredible group of entrepreneurs who work tirelessly to solve the problems of humanity. Nonprofit founders. I was one, but I really wanted to understand why millions of people across the country start businesses simply to help people. And not only did I find my heroes, but we had the most unbelievable conversations. And now, a decade later, after sharing these enlightening discussions via the Charity Matters blog, I decided it was time to share these conversations with all of you. The result is the new Charity Matters podcast. Today, the tables are turned, and I'm answering the questions instead of asking them. And honestly, I prefer it the other way around, but I'm going to try to be a host and a guest. I think as an interviewer, I definitely have a handful of questions that I like to ask my guest. And so today I'll be answering some of my favorite questions for everybody. I think one of the first questions that I like to ask my guest is really a little bit about the organization and to get them to understand about what the organization does, where it came from, how it started. And so in sharing a little bit about what Charity Matters does and is, Charity Matters is a filter for goodness that connects people and causes. And we really use our platform to spread the message of these extraordinary humans who are using their lives to serve others. And our goal is really to share these incredible stories to act as a mirror for reflection. And our hope is that they inspire others to look at the ways that they can serve and connect and make a difference in the world. There's just so much negativity out there, and there's so much good happening. And we really want to get people excited, and we want to show them front and center all of the amazing things that are happening in our world. I've had a handful of friends ask me, well, why a podcast? Is it kind of a trendy thing to do? And really the answer is, for anyone who knows me, I'm a little embarrassed to admit, but I'm a talker. I mean, I'm a real life chatty Cathy. And anyone who knows me would say that that's a fact. I love to talk. But more than that, I really love to learn people's stories. And honestly, it just seems selfish after all these years not to share them. I really want all of you to meet these amazing people who have changed my life with their stories and their journeys. And something happens to each of them. Something happens to these people you'll meet, our guest, that propels them into action. And I think we can all take a page from their model of turning loss into something beautiful for others. There's always a backstory. Always. And I suppose you're probably wondering, what's mine? Because I say it all the time. People don't wake up and start charitable organizations. They just don't. Something happens, or a series of things happens that kind of changes the trajectory of your life. And something happened to me in November of 2002 that changed everything, really. And that put me on this unexpected path in the nonprofit space. I got a call in the middle of the night, the ones that everyone talks about and is afraid of, and there's a reason that they are. My parents had been in Mexico on vacation with 3 other couples, and they were involved in a horrible car accident. They were hit by a bus. And my mother and two of my parents' friends were killed instantly. One was and still is seriously injured. And my dad was in a coma. So we got my dad home from Mexico to Los Angeles, and he was hospitalized for almost 3 weeks. And he came home Thanksgiving Day from the accident. But during those weeks in the hospital, my father was in a coma. He had died twice and survived. But our faith was deeply, deeply tested. It was an extraordinarily difficult time for our entire family. So a year later, I was 35 years old. I had 3 young sons, 3 little ones. And the following November, a friend of mine who happened to be a Catholic priest and a hospital chaplain called myself and a bunch of my girlfriends and asked us to come down to Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. He said he needed help to serve the tens of thousands of children who came through the hospital each year, but they didn't have chaplains to greet the helicopters in traumatic situations, to be in the ER, to sit with the family during a surgery. And he asked all of us to help him start a nonprofit. And then on that same tour, that same day, in November of 2003, we met a young mother and her son in the hospital, and she told us their story. And then she told our friend, Father John, that her son was going home on Thanksgiving Day, the same day my father had gone home the year before. And in that moment, like a lightning bolt, I knew it was a sign that I needed to do this. And so the 10 of us got to work, and we created a nonprofit called the Spiritual Care Guild that provides chaplains of all faiths 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. Today, all these years later, Spiritual Care Guild now has a United Nations of chaplains, an interfaith center for all the families and staff at the hospital. And we help change the culture of a 100-year-old institution. And the Spiritual Care Guild program at CHLA has become a national template of pediatric chaplaincy. And that journey led me to search for others who were called to do this work. That was the beginning of it all. I think anytime someone starts a business, or starts anything for that matter, there are always challenges. Nothing goes as expected. Nothing is as easy as it seems. But I think those challenges and those roadblocks are ultimately the gifts that help us with resilience, help us persevere, and more than anything, I think they really help us learn. And for me, the biggest challenges, especially in 2011, when I was starting Charity Matters, I was running a nonprofit and juggling raising 3 young sons and trying to start a blog. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I loved it. And in 2013, I decided to take on a new challenge, and I became the executive director of a nonprofit called Task. And I took on this role to rebuild an existing 30-year-old nonprofit that teaches leadership to middle school students. And the challenges of trying to interview nonprofit founders through Charity Matters, raise my sons, and run a nonprofit was really, I felt like I was never quite doing it all. The juggle, I was always dropping one ball, and it was difficult. It was really difficult. Something was always left behind, and I think a lot of people can relate with that feeling. But 7 years later, I'm proud to say that I'm still at the helm of Task and the nonprofit that I run, and we're thriving. The juggle was real, but I never stopped with Charity Matters. I never stopped sharing the stories of my tribe of these incredible nonprofit founders. And as a result, Charity Matters has continued to grow over the years. And I think that walking the same walk that the people I interview walk is incredibly helpful. I think we understand the challenges, the day in, day out of our work, and just the fact that you want to help someone isn't always enough to make it happen. There's a lot that goes into running a business that relies on donations. It just is a lot more complicated than I think people realize. But it's beyond rewarding. I like to kind of find out from people what fuels them to keep doing the work because, as I just said, the bucket gets heavy sometimes. When you are at the helm of an organization, there isn't someone to hand your heavy bucket to at the end of the day. It relies on you. And if I was running a business that made pencils and I didn't make enough pencils during the day, I might be able to go to sleep at night. But when you're running a business that relies on you to either educate, feed, give health care, a whole host of subjects of which nonprofits cover, you feel like you have people on your back at night that you're responsible for. And if your work isn't done, those people don't get fed. They don't get educated. They don't get the things that they need to survive, the health care or whatever it is the organization does. So there's a lot of pressure. And I think that the fuel to keep going when you're doing this work is really the people that you serve and the stories that come with it. And I think in doing the work at Charity Matters, for me, what fuels me is the conversations that I have with these incredible people. The life lessons I learn from them. They're these wise, interesting, strong, compassionate humans. And it's kind of a guilty pleasure that I'm really excited about sharing with you. I've never gotten off the phone or had a conversation that literally didn't just stop me and make me think. I mean, these stories are unbelievable. And I also think that the feedback that I get from people who have been following us for the past decade, the notes I get about them volunteering or getting involved or donating or what it's done for them, I think really fuel me to keep going and keep the juggle happening and inspire a circle of positive energy and goodness. And once that gets going, it's addictive and you want to keep seeing it move forward. And when I see signs that it's moving forward and get the feedback, there's just nothing better. Nothing at all. Nonprofit founders are an interesting breed of entrepreneurs, and they're so selfless, and they absolutely do not want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about their work. And all of them, literally all of them, when you ask them how they know they've made a difference, they're almost shy. It's so interesting because they're so busy doing the work that they don't always stop and see that they had a hand in something and changing someone's life in a really big way. And I'm always so surprised by their humility and their grace and their comments. But when you ask someone how they know that they've made a difference with their work, I mean, it is kind of a tricky question. And I think with Charity Matters, there's a couple of ways that we've made a difference in the past 10 years. I think first is really bringing new audiences to nonprofits. I think when people learn about each other, they're so excited. And whether they relate to it or they want to get involved with it, I think that there's a beautiful thing that happens. And I hear from both ends. I hear from subscribers who have gotten involved with nonprofits, and I hear from nonprofits thanking me for bringing new people into their community. So I think that double-edged sword is so, makes me so happy either way. It's fantastic. And then I get stopped by people in the most random places. Well, back when we used to be outside and run into people or be at parties. And I remember a couple of years ago, I ran into a gentleman who I didn't know followed Charity Matters. And he approached me and said, "Thank you for feeding my soul once a week." And it was one of the most powerful moments. And that comment just meant everything to me, because so often I write or interview people and have conversations. You do this work and you put it out there, and you don't think that there's people listening or reading it. And then when someone tells you that it feeds their soul, you can't even believe you have a hand in that. So I think that it's moments like those that I feel that Charity Matters has made a difference, and hopefully continues to make a difference in a bigger way now with a podcast. I think if I could dream any dream for Charity Matters, it's continuing to be a messenger of service, whatever shape that comes in. I love my work at Task. I love inspiring thousands of students to serve each year. I love speaking publicly about service. I am passionate about interviewing amazing people to share their stories, whether it's via the written or spoken word. All of it is really answering the same call to be a messenger. And that's really Charity Matters' role. We're simply a messenger. That's really the role. And I think my life became a lot easier when I mentioned the challenges earlier. Once I realized that my work, all of it, whether it's my day job or Charity Matters or the service that I'm involved in, all of it is the same. And so my dream for Charity Matters is first that it leaves the world better than we found it. And my hope is that by sharing these stories via this platform, more and more people are inspired to serve one another. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that that's why we are all here. And I have learned that over time. The big question that always gives everybody pause when I ask them about what life lessons they've learned from their experience in serving others. Every time I ask that question, there's a huge sigh. And of course, I'm giving a huge sigh right now. But I will say this, I have always believed that people are good. And this experience and these conversations have completely confirmed that belief and taught me so much more. I feel like I have a front row seat to humanity, and now I'm excited that you do too. It's such a privilege to see the best in people every week, to witness kindness, compassion, dedication, perseverance, and commitment to strangers, to people they don't even know. These nonprofit founders and entrepreneurs are giving their life to serve people they don't necessarily even personally know. And to see that just renews my faith in humanity. It makes me want to be a better person. And I feel like Charity Matters' role is to simply hold up a mirror and to look in it for all of us to see how we can strive to be better to help one another. This journey has changed me in incredible ways. I'd like to think I've become a better person for having learned from all of these people who are truly my heroes, and I hope they become yours. Don't get me wrong, I am no saint, and I still have the mouth of a sailor, which I'm going to try really hard to keep clean for this. However, when you talk to these people who have literally given up their lives, changed their careers, and completely devoted themselves to something so much bigger than them. It changes you, it shifts you, and it alters you in incredible ways. But the single biggest change since beginning Charity Matters and all of this work, this journey and life of service, is my gratitude. I am reminded daily from these conversations how blessed I truly am to have love, family, food, a hot shower, and my health. And that gratitude fuels me, and there is no joy without it. And gratitude has changed my life in enormous ways, as has service and all of these amazing people that have come into my path through Charity Matters. So thank you for joining us today for our first episode. And I hope that these people that we're bringing to you will change your lives, will inspire you, will make you think, and will give you joy. That really is my hope. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed sharing my journey and why I'm so determined to help the helpers. To learn more about these modern day heroes and entrepreneurs, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared this with your friends and family. Because together, we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. See you next week.